Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all. In today's session of Visual JForex, I will be completing the setup involving the indicator center of gravity. This is the third and the final session in this series. So let us now head to the Visual JForex board, which has been developed by the Dukascopy Bank SA. So as to make sure that we can develop the algorithms for profitable trading in a very easy manner. In prior two sessions, the developments so far have been carried out to include this instrument subscription. After that, the position amount was defined at 0. And I have added these center of gravity blocks. First one is of daily time period. And these two are of 4 hours, and one more is also. This also has a candle period of 4 hours. And to look at the price volatility, we are also relying on these get historical candles. This is the cluster of 4 candles, and this is single, and the candle period is 4 hours, and these two are used for pinpointing the exact entry points. These closing values will be compared with the closing value of candle 23rd. And on the lower side, we have also these calculation expression blocks in place to define certain requirements, which I will be explaining to you shortly. And on the lower side, this is the complete logical sequence for the execution of the buy trade, and we will have to replicate it in a inverted fashion for the execution of the sell trade. Since we need the formation to be symmetric, the number of conditions for the execution of the sell is going to be same, and we have to use 8 if blocks for that, as we had used 8 if blocks while defining the buy side. So straight away I will add 8 if blocks, and afterwards I will explain to you the logical requirements which we will have to define. Now let us head to the J4X platform. This is the Euro USD chart, and I will have to change it to USD JPY, as we had used USD JPY as our instrument of choice. So I will change it. For any sell trade to be executed, we need the momentum on the daily time frame to be on the bearish side. For that, we need the signal line to be below the center of gravity line. Its output value will need to be compared, and only if we have these signal lines output value lower than the center of gravity lines output value, we will go for the execution of the trade. So that is the first requirement on the daily time frame chart. And after that, we see whether the momentum is freshly turning bearish on the 4 hourly time frame, and only when the new turnaround is happening we go for the execution of the sell trade. And to make sure that we don't get involved in a choppy trading environment where the momentum change might be happening quite frequently. So as to avoid that condition, I have also added additional requirement that a day back the momentum should have been bullish, and now in last 4 hours it has turned bearish, and in the penultimate 4 hours it was still bullish. So we will have to use three conditions, three logical sequencing, and define this requirement. And after that, the conditions is going to be related to the price action. We will need the last 4 hourly candle to have closed with losses. It's some construction work is going on nearby, and the disturbance. Sorry for that. Now let us resume. We have to make sure that the last 4 hours closing value was lower than the opening value, and that will make sure that the momentum is there. And whatever is the immediate high of last 16 hours, we will be deducting 10 pips from that and place the limit order. So limit order means the order will be placed above the current market price, and whenever the price starts to drop below that, we will look to initiate the order. So now let us go back to the Visual JForex board. Okay, I think first thing we will have to do is define the entry point for the placement of order for the sale. So I will have to take calculation expression block. We will need the last 16 hours candle high. So FHL candle high will need to be added. And from this value, I will deduct TDP. This is the variable with value of 10 pips. Our equation is going to be A1 minus A2, and this will be sale execution price SEE. I will disconnect this and join it up. We now have this requirement defined, which will come handy while defining the parameters for the trade command block. So let us now start defining the requirements, the conditions, using the center of gravity tool, center of gravity indicator. Today's output value for the center of gravity indicators will be used, and we will need signal line 16 to be lower than the center of gravity line. So the first input less than second input. And after this, we compare the momentum on the lower time frame of 4 hours. In last 4 hours, the momentum should have turned bearish, so we need the last 4 hours signal line to be less than the last 4 hours center of gravity line. Again, first input less than second input. In the penalty period 4 hours, the conditions should have been different. The momentum should have still been bullish, and only in last 4 hours it has turned bearish. So we need the signal line 21, not 21, because this is the center of gravity output. A day back, the shift value is 6. For the penultimate 4 hourly output, we will need to look at the signal line 28 and center of gravity line 28 and compare these values. We will need signal line to have been higher compared to the center of gravity line. Okay, so first input greater than second input, and a day back also the momentum should have been bullish. So we now have to consider signal line 21 and center of gravity line 21. In this case also first input greater than second input. Okay, so we have defined these conditions involving the center of gravity line and signal line combination. Now we will have to compare the price action data and in the last 4 hours we need the momentum to have been bearish. So we are going to also use the comparison of last 4 hours opening and closing value. We have this candle 23rd, candle 23rd's closing value will need to be less than the opening value. First input less than second input. So let me check how many blocks we have already utilized, and that is 5. I think I have missed out on one more condition. Yes, we will also have to make sure that the last tick price is less than the selling price, because we will be placing the limit order, otherwise the system might malfunction. So to avoid that kind of scenario, that additional condition will need to be put in, and with that we will have a algorithm ready. So all we now need is to define 3 more conditions. On tick, last tick, needs to be less than the sell execution price. First input less than second input. I will disconnect this. Okay. And now all we need is to compare the last 4 hours closing value with the closing values of last two 10-second blocks. So we need to consider candle 23rd's closing value, candle 23rd candle close, and compare it with candle 25 and candle 26 closing levels. We'll need candle 25th candle close to be less than candle 23rd candle close, as this is the 10-second block with shift value of 1. The look back period is 1. So first input less than second input, whereas candle 26 close should have been higher compared to the last 4 hours closing value. So we need for this block the condition is going to be first input greater than second input. Now it's time to bring in the trade command block pending open. Before defining the parameters for trade command block, I will quickly arrange these if blocks to where they belong. Now, coming to the most important parameter, the execution price. We have to place it just 10 pips below the highest value of last 16 hours. So this variable will need to be placed. Default instrument is going to remain the same. Trade amount I will change to 0.1 million. Slippage will be 2 pips. Take profit. We are going to use the combination of the ratio of 1:2. So 15 pips stop loss and 30 pips take profit. Order validity we had defined in last session. This variable which has a value of 4 hours. Our order validity will be 4 hours. And trade command will need to be changed to sell limit. So with this, the setup is complete. I hope you have been able to understand the logical as well as the execution part of this algorithm. If you find any any further need for clarity, or if you have any query, you can write to me in the feedback section and I will be more than happy to take the discussion forward. For further coverage of the market developments, you can also access the Dukascopy analytics page. For starting to trade, you can use the J4X platform, which is quite easy to install and start trading. And in that, if you need any kind of assistance, you can write to me. We are also available on Facebook. You can join our Facebook page. Thank you all for joining in. See you next time. Till then, goodbye.